Here displayed behind me is the post that Mr. Lefelt put up. Mr. Lefelt came in here today saying that this is game day.
One moment, a point of order, please,
You're
Madam Chair.
not. Okay,
Madam Chair, I have a point of order. The document that you have up behind you is a misrepresentation of the actual post. It appears that you're trying to misrepresent a witness here who you use subpoena powers against.
This is not Miss Stansbury. Miss Stansbury, this is not a point of order.
The actual picture.
Miss Stansbury, you're not recognized. Miss Stansbury, you're not recognized. Miss Stansbury, you're not recognized.
One of those these days, that gavel's going to hit her in the head, and she'll be smarter for it. She will be better off.
You are not. This is not a point of order, Miss Stansbury. This is not a point of order.
What the committee does, you are misrepresenting the witnesses, you are misrepresenting policy, you are misrepresenting...
Miss Stansbury, you're not recognized. Did you feel you were in a safe environment, free from abuse when you were told you must compete against him?
It's the conversation. It's the conversation. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Let's go. Let's go. No filter, no restrictions. You about to get my opinion in its purest form. So my words, don't try to spin them. What I said is what I said. And what I said, I meant it. The gloves are off now when I'm coming out swinging. So engage in verbal combat, but you better be ready. Cause this here for me is light work, even if the topic's heavy. I'm ready for it all with no running from nothing. You just take the time to digest what I put in, no rushing. But time is moving, don't waste it. You want the real, come and face it. Come sit and talk to me if you want it straight without a chaser. And it might burn a little when you step on up to taste it. But it's nothing harsh, I promise. Just a little conversation.
Hey, welcome back to the conversation with Harold and Dave. I'm sorry. That got me. What a good start, right? What a good start to today's show. I'm going to watch that a little bit.
Marjorie.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
Lord have mercy.
Eclipsed. Her stupidity has been utterly eclipsed by the cabinet. I mean, I look at that now and I'm just like, yeah, remember when that was the worst thing we had? And, then you see Pete Hegseth testifying at Congress and or Robert Kennedy. I mean, just we keep finding a new bottom.
I don't know if it gets worse than McMahon. I don't know if it can get worse than that.
They're competing. They really are.
It's like the circus of people who don't. It's so funny. They keep trying to talk about everybody being DEI hires. It's the most DEI hires I've ever seen in my life.
Well, those are the did not earn it. It's not the diversity, equity, inclusion. But those are the did not earn it. But hey, what can I say?
It's so funny with DEI. It's the same fight with affirmative action. Everybody assumes it's just something that covers minorities. And no one takes the time to research of what areas DEI or affirmative action covers. Like women who complain about DEI and affirmative action that are MAGA women don't understand, this is helping you. DEI helps veterans. DEI helps disabled people. It's not just minorities. It's like, you can't. It's just, research. Why?
But it's no different than when they talk about those that are receiving subsidies or public assistance. The majority are white people that receive it, but if I frame it or try to stereotype it as something that black people, a majority of the people that are on it are minorities, then that creates that level of anger and angst that's needed and that energy to go the opposite way when you're really going to hurt more of the other people that are on it, the non-minorities that are on it, as opposed to the minorities. But hey, it is what it is.
I talked to someone yesterday, Dave, and they thought welfare only covered food stamps. That's what they thought welfare was, food stamps. Food stamps, EBT, and that's it.
There is more, and so much more. And the thing is that just really annoys me is they've been at war against, and they, by they, both sides, right? The best thing to run against is Washington. And it's been that way since I was pretty. When I was young and pretty, they had, we were hearing about $600 toilets, seats, and so all the UAs. And the thing is that people have consistently over the decades gone to war against corruption, abuse. They reformed welfare in the 90s and balanced the budget with a bipartisan bill. And you had Newt Gingrich, that was his big thing before we got into the whole Monica Lewinsky thing. And so this is why when you go in and Doge goes in and they find apparent anomalies that turn out to be nothing. I saw an interview with one of the Doge guys who worked at the Department of Veteran Affairs. They looked for corruption. They found zero through their lens as programmers, as coders. They went in, they found zero cases. Another agency referred a case to them of someone who was 137 and getting benefits. And they went in and checked and go, no, the guy's 75. That's exactly who we expect to get. Your data's wrong. Imagine that. A 137-year-old guy, maybe the data's wrong, right? But no, the data's right, and we're corruptly giving him benefits. And the guy said, he ended up saying that for all their efforts, they found in Department of Veteran Affairs, zero cases. And I'm like, of course they did. Well, actually, I am a little surprised they didn't find any. I don't know. But, not rampant fraud and abuse, because Republicans have been working this issue for decades. We knew some things about the government before this. But anyway, plane landed, crashing, burning, smoking.
All right. Well, we'll get
Yeah, the little chute.
smashing, burning. We'll get to what we came here to talk about: ice, and not the iced tea, and not ice that goes in a nice, cool glass of water during the summer. Ice raids in California. California governor is not happy. He's been backdoored by the president of the United States. Presidents usually don't backdoor governors. There's been more. People have heard me stutter a lot. Someone said, "You're starting to stutter a lot." And it's because my brain is about to shut down talking about these topics. We don't need the National Guard and military during an insurrection. We don't need the military and National Guard during California wildfires, but let's get them down there to harass citizens so we can find illegal immigrants in California. What the hell, Dave?
They haven't been. This is the thing: is Trump is doing this. He says, "I'm going to send 2,000 National Guard, 300 show up."
Yes.
They've deployed a battalion of Marines who are living somewhere. I don't know where, right? Because these folks don't understand, if you deploy in a city, you need to rent a hotel. You need to take over a couple hotels to do this. And a total disregard for logistics. But they don't have, Lori was asking me, I wonder what their rules are. And I said, the rules haven't been established yet, right? Because they're going to go to court tomorrow. Tomorrow, a judge is going to tell them what they can and can't do. So the Marine Corps is there and, doing nothing except inflaming the situation, at which point they might get something to do. But there's no one's been hurt, right? Look at this. Look at the stats. There are no reports of wounded people. People are getting arrested, but there's no reports of major injuries. You see one car burning, right? And they keep showing that video over and over again. And throughout the rest of the city, people are having, the gay pride parade. They had pride, and they sent 50 officers to go march in the pride parade, because clearly they could spare them, because the city's not burning. It's one little area. And now that you've got these troops guarding the government buildings, which might be the object of protesters, there's really not that much, okay, they're probably fine. So,
no, but he'd have you believe there's freaking Armageddon going down there and the streets are on fire.
That's the narrative. And they would like it. I asked my wife, I said, "Do you remember what started the Rodney King riots?" I'm going to guess you guys do. Just, I'm sorry, I don't mean to stereotype, but I'm going to guess y'all remember. But I think most people will go, "Yeah, what were the Rodney King riots?" And they forgot the gross violation. Cops beating up an innocent trucker for no good reason. Everyone was outraged by it, but then the violence became the issue, and we've forgotten what started all that. And I think Trump would like that. That's the worst case scenario, that the violence does materialize and we all forget what it is that started this. But Newsom, I mean, people are working against that, and we're going to have to see. This is a Martin Luther King moment. This is a moment where we
Mm.
need somebody who's got the savvy, because it was his genius. He said, "We are going to protest, but we're going to make people like us. We're not going to fall into the traps because they are set for us." Not to speak in, but I think when you study his strategy, Lawrence Friedman, there's a chapter in his book on strategy all about Martin Luther King. And that was, a thing, and that's what's needed in the leadership of this protest, of these protests.
Do you think he's disappointed, Harold, the president, that there wasn't a mass response in anarchy and buildings burning? Because I feel like that's the response that was uh, searched for.
Well, I mean, again, he's trying to appease his base, with the cries out for illegality, illegal behavior on the quote unquote side of the Dems or side of liberals. And so now you're in a city that they want, that they label a sanctuary city, where they want to come in and really create chaos. And I call it, really the bag's the plan, and he's using sleight of hand. What I mean by that is, when we had this immigration issue before, they were kidnapping children at the border and flying them to different facilities across the country. And those facilities were being compensated, I think it was like $775 a day per child. So those individuals who got those contracts are eating good, living good, and doing very well for themselves. So now we're doing the same thing with now criminalizing this whole immigration piece, when, and perhaps I stand to be corrected, if I'm not mistaken, immigration is a civil matter, not a criminal matter. So if we criminalize it, now we're arresting people when we should be giving them a ticket or a citation or something, and we're creating more chaos and really violating the rights of these individuals. But until we have people that are willing to stand up and say, "Hey, listen, we're going about it," well, I mean, you do have some people saying we're going about it the wrong way, but not forceful enough to get the media, allow the media to make traction or give it traction, so that hopefully we can turn this thing around. But right now, again, the goal is to try to create chaos so they can justify a response if someone responds the wrong way. I land.
Now, I put a comment earlier because, and Dave, I'll get to your comment because I'm taking it as integrity that this person was around. He said, "No reports of people wounding. I just got maced." Uh, this is a person that apparently lives in Los Angeles. But go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not the kind of violence. Certainly not cops getting one. I mean, the level of reported violence, that metric, um, and not to getting maced is not a hospitalizable thing, right? I mean, a lot of people are getting maced, and there's these low levels, but we aren't seeing crowds. There's no looting. There's no people getting the kinds of things that are generally reported and used as excuses. I got to point out too, Abrego Garcia, as they're bringing him back, they're putting him on trial for trafficking migrants, and isn't that what governors of Texas and Florida did? Right? Didn't they just traffic migrants? And
Yes, they did.
how is that not? Yeah.
How's it
Besides
different?
which, so many of these people are not illegal. They are here. Asylum seekers are by definition not illegal.
Right.
And we had that problem with that shithead I had to talk to, who didn't understand the immigration system, even though he proclaimed himself to be an immigrant. I did it. I know everything, right? And it's like, hey, look, dude, people who are going for asylum are legal. They are here legally. They are going through the process. And I got no use for people who are so ignorant of this situation.
Well,
And what we're doing is they're getting people in. They have people come in for a hearing who are in that legal status. They are legally applying, and they cancel. They have the judge dismissed it, and so now their legal avenue is closed. They walk out, and ICE is waiting for them. Right, so they make that person here illegally, and then they apprehend him and deport him, all to get their quota. And so I'm sorry if I'm harsh on people who have done this line of, oh, I support legal immigration. No, you don't. You're supporting the racism that declares a group of people who don't look like this guy to be an enemy, to be a dangerous other, to need to be deported. I said it.
you're right, because if that's the case, we should be looking for everyone with expired visa from every country that's not a citizen of this country. Um, you just talked about the loophole of people seeking asylum, then getting a court hearing and getting their case dismissed, and now they're illegal. And one of the things that I brought up when you did have that debate is it's that false information that's getting put out. Well, you remember the president said 20 million illegal immigrants, and then that dropped down to 10. And I had to explain to people there's no one at the border with a clicker that's watching people come out of a tunnel and going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So even if you don't have a number, there's no number on how many people are here illegally. You know why? Because if someone is here illegally, they don't fill out a census form and say,
And
I'm living at Dave's house illegally.
Well, but you have a number for illegal people, meaning those who've overstayed their visas. But
Yes.
that's not the focus of this energy. The energy is people crossing the border
Mhm.
whom they deem as illegal when, if you're going to apply for asylum, last time I checked, the Constitution requires any individual to enter our borders in order to apply for asylum.
You can't seek asylum from Haiti in Haiti. You can't seek asylum from Cuba in Cuba. You can't seek asylum from Mexico in Mexico.
and their problem is, as I understand, I've seen some reporting, and we're always wondering, but that their rate, it's multiple places saying we know that the rate is low, right? I heard they were going between 600 and 800 arrests a day, and at 800 a day, I did the arithmetic. It's not worth calling it math. At 800 a day, 365 is 200. I think it's 292,000, right? It's less than 300,000, and that's actually a lot of people. If they could get their max average every day,
Right.
that would be a lot. But it's, if you've been out claiming there's 20 million, right, which isn't true, right?
Right.
Their big problem is they set these they made
They
these
lied.
outrageous claims.
Yeah.
They lied, they misrepresented, they falsified, they exaggerated something. And now the reality is, if there were 20 million, they wouldn't be having this trouble now, would they? And they're having to go in and they're raiding places. I saw they had ICE showed up to a place in Nebraska, a meat packing plant, where the company used the government's e-verify system. Everybody there was verified through the governmental system, and ICE showed up and raided them. The company's like, "What are you doing? We comply." And they're like, "Oh, our system is flawed." He goes, "Well, that's your problem, not mine. I'm doing what." And the thing is, the system may be flawed, but there is a system. People do have status. That plant had gone through all the steps the government wanted, yet they're still getting raided because they're desperate. They're desperate for numbers to meet a goal that can never be achieved. It's
And
like tariff, and it's like everything. These goals, I'll end the war in a day in Ukraine, right? I'm going to come up with 120 free trade agreements in 90 days. I'm going to bring manufacturing back. It's false claims, outrageous. They can't ever be met.
How much do you think a stop in production cost that company?
Mm.
It costs. Yeah, I mean, you stop the factory for a day. You're not doing anyone any good in that town. You know, and
One of the, so let's, and I know we try to stay away from these, but heck, let's appease the audience. Someone asked, "What do you say to these ignorant people that always say, well, why don't you go back and fix your country and then you won't have to come here?" Harold?
I mean, we have a history of disrupting other countries. We create sometimes some of the very chaos that they experience within their governments, within their economies. And so now these people are desperate to now create or identify a space or a place where they can go and either restart or, continue the, providing a livelihood for their families. So I think it's, disingenuous and very, very ignorant of them to claim that these people need to go back or stay where they came from when we've caused the chaos and confusion within their borders. And then we retreat back home to say, hey, look at them. So I just, it's crazy. And there's not much you can say really to those individuals because they're grounded and rooted in what they believe, you know, at the end of the day. And if they tell them that, hey, these other people are bad or these other people are evil, that's what's going to be the focal point of those that side with that type of rhetoric. And sadly, these people who are seeking a better life are suffering for it. Not only that, but they're benefiting us because they're paying for taxes as well and not receiving benefits from it or aren't eligible for the retirement benefits of SSI or Social Security.
Well,
So it's a double-edged sword.
living down the street from you growing up, I got to witness when you say treatment and vilification of that growing up in Miami as a kid in the 80s because I saw boats and boats of Cubans and Haitians coming to our shores, and I saw that both were treated very differently. Very differently.
Mm-hmm.
But they're both seeking the same thing. Dave, what do you say to those people? I know how you like to talk to those type of people, but what do you say?
haven't I ranted enough? I ffeel like I should just shut up the rest of the evening. I've really
What?
come in strong. Called Porcello a
He
shithead.
came in hot.
About that, but I'm really tired. What specifically do you want me to comment on?
No, I don't want you to comment. I want to show something that I saw on Jimmy Kimmel last night that just tickled
Why
my
don't we
funny
go
bone.
there?
And we are, because it talks about
Jimmy, I
immigration.
love it.
Let's watch this. Let's watch this.
We are, one and all, immigrants or the sons and daughters.
We are the descendants of 40 million people who left other countries to make a new opportunity for themselves and their children.
The lamp of this grand old lady is brighter today, and the golden door that she guards gleams more brilliantly in the light of an increased liberty for the people from all countries.
I'm convinced that the vast majority of Americans today want these people to have another opportunity.
Ours is a party that welcomes generations of immigrants.
If we ever closed the door to new Americans, our leadership in the world would soon be lost.
Immigration is not just a link to America's past. It's also a bridge to America's future.
This is one country. We like our diversity. We are proud of it.
Amid all the complications of policy, may we never forget that immigration is a blessing and a strength.
These people, our neighbors, our classmates, our friends, they did not come here in search of a free ride or an easy life. They came to work.
We don't demonize immigrants. We don't single them out for attacks. We don't believe they're poisoning the blood of the country. We're a nation of immigrants, and that's why we're so damn strong.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
How do we? The reason I showed that, Dave, is because We saw presidents that people aren't going to like, no matter what side of the fence you are. There were Republicans, there were Democrats, there were leftists, they were right, whatever you want to call them. And they all still had the same message about whether you like Reagan or not, whether you like Kennedy or not, whether you like Obama or not. They all had the same damn message. And then we go through all of that to we're eating the cats. Oh, how we've fallen.
Well, it is the consistent message of MAGA that these other people, they're bad people out there. And the problem is bad people. The problem are government employees. They're the problem. The problem is people who are anyone who complains if their Social Security check is late, they must be scamming the system, right? So they're scammers. They're dangerous, bad people. And that is the essence of MAGA. They're turning their fear, their insecurity about a world that is changing, that no longer reflects the values they thought were important. They now, they channel it into this hatred, right? And I got to tell you, this week was Pride, right? And so I'm in Hollowell, major, one of the major progressive places in Maine. And I went to a talk where politicians, LGBTQ IA plus, that's the acronyms getting long, folks. But the folks from the community came out and they talked about their very real problems they had, not with letters or names, and not with but with uh, being able to be gay and have a home, be gay and keep your job, because these were older people who were talking about their life starting in the 80s. And some of the younger people, they were like, what do you mean you could lose your job? And they're like, well, yeah, we could lose your housing. They could kick you out if landlord could kick you out, you know? But what amazed me, and I did a few videos and I had to go through the negative comments that naturally flood in anytime you post anything to do with Pride. And it occurred to me though that these folks took they had fear. They all talked about coming to Hollowell. It's not to engage in licentious gay sex. There's actually a song on YouTube about Hollowell that says they celebrate gay sex, right? Because that's clearly what this is about. No, everybody there told the story that they came to Hollowell because they heard it, they could be safe. And I said, as an American, as a former soldier, that's shameful for us that they came here because they were scared to go elsewhere. But then I thought about it and I said, you know what they did? They took that fear and anxiety and insecurity and they turned it into pride. In Pride, no one tells anyone what to do, but all these comments I got that I was deleting, a common thread. They're telling gay people, hey, you should shut up. You should not be prideful. You should, they kept telling them what to do. And the Pride community doesn't tell anyone else what to do they?
No.
Right? They turn, and so I said I have to honor them for turning their fear and insecurity into a positive, affirming thing. And yeah, they get wild and dress funny, and
I don't dress funny. But Harold, I want to play what Dave did on Facebook, and then I want you to comment on it.
This will defend. It's the Army's motto, but who is it that we need to defend? The young woman who weeps the first time she sees herself, not himself, in the mirror? This will defend. The man with a sick husband who needs to be his legal next of kin to stay by his side? This will defend. The young man working overtime to pay for the surgery that will finally let him take off his shirt at the beach. This will defend. Those that love where others do not, those who can't be just either or, those who only feel normal when queer, those who are oppressed by the idea of normal. All this we must defend, for we are all at risk because everyone has something unique to themselves that others might fear or hate. We all must join the defense, for there are no allies, just those lucky enough not to be targeted yet.
Well, that was schmaltzy.
That was powerful,
Thank you.
and it definitely hit where it needed to hit. My thought is if we lack empathy towards others, as it said toward the end, there won't be anybody left to defend us. So we have to be more empathetic towards ensuring everyone has the same rights afforded to us by the Constitution. At the end of the day, to be who we are. And if we want life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then another individual's pursuit of happiness shouldn't bother my pursuit of happiness. And it shouldn't make me happy to make someone else unhappy. So I think, at the end of the day, we definitely need to make sure that particular message is sent out and resonates. And it didn't come across my feed, but if it does, I will share, and share again, just to
Ooh,
make sure
don't do that.
that message gets out.
You might open up a can of worms. I find
That's
it,
okay. I hope
whether
they're hungry.
it's LGBTQ, whether it's immigration, whether it's things with minorities, I find people that I know that are happy in life on their status and where they are and what they have going in their life have no time to rail against immigrants, queer people, ethnicities, and all these things. And everyone that I know that's miserable rants about these things.
Let me give you an anecdotal example of what's going on in Florida. I don't know if you remember when Governor DeSantis decided he wanted to take over New College, that small college, that small liberal college on the West Coast. Well, he did what he wanted to do, took it over. Their enrollment has not gotten over 50% of capacity since, even though they poured money into trying to create sports programs and all this to hopefully draw people back. It's not working. Not only that, but they put someone who did not have, they did not have academic leadership experience as the president. What happened next? They took over FIU. Same trick. They had the board of trustees of that institution appoint someone that he wanted to be president, which was his lieutenant governor. Paid her almost $1 million a year. She has no institutional leadership experience.
FIU,
What
FIU
just re-
biggest alumni base in Florida, bigger than the Gators, bigger than
guess
UM.
what? But guess what? They've been invaded, and now some of them are upset. But it's too late. When the time to speak out, and you didn't show any empathy towards New College when they were taking over. Now, what just happened recently within the last 2 weeks? FAMU's board of trustees just appointed someone DeSantis basically pushed into becoming the president of FAMU. They're upset now. But again, they showed no empathy toward New College. They showed no empathy towards FIU. And now it happened to them. Now, I respect my Gators because they just recently said no to a DeSantis appointee. And I salute them to the highest. But at the end of the day, I wish they had stood up for the others prior to it coming to their doorstep. And that's what I mean by the lack of empathy and the impact that it's had here in Florida.
And the point of education is that it is not completely government, right? The education system runs, you have some government, certainly the higher education system. And so you have, you can go to Liberty University if you want to go there, right?
Right.
And there are many of colleges that have Brigham Young makes a safe space for the LDS folks, and power to them, right? And Brigham Young is a perfectly good university that has academic cred because we have a system of accrediting agencies that go through and check, and it's a non-governmental one. It's actually regional. There isn't even a national one, right? There's these regional ones. And this is just the example of America being America, not being our government, which is, where I come from, and that used to make me a conservative, right? And they're tearing that down while complaining about, so they want to take over higher education while they want to, break up the K through 12 and let people out. And I'm like, you're being a bit inconsistent here in this. But
Well, the goal is to privatize. And the way we privatize is we create chaos, confusion, say it's poorly being run and poorly performing, and now we need to take it over here and let somebody else run.
But it hasn't. The fascinating thing is for Project 2025, when you looked at their stats
Mm-hmm.
for, educational achievement, test scores have been going up consistently, right? All those decades of government control, and then it all goes to hell when we have a pandemic. And go figure, you take kids out of school for a year, and everything goes to
Right.
hell. And so I was like, your stats don't show. They show that the pandemic was a problem. They don't
Right.
show that the government or the system was a problem at all. In fact, they show a steady improvement through even, George Bush's No Child Left Behind and the introduction. We might decry it, but whatever the system, whatever the complaints about it, it kept making progress until COVID. And it makes this is why I get so exercised, because none of this factually makes sense. You don't I don't need to disagree with these folks over their goals or their values. I can say, look, you want to get rid of get rid of illegal immigrants. All right, great. That's a goal. I can give you that. But you're not doing it, right? You're getting rid of legal immigrants. You're getting rid of, you're and so we've gotten to the point where you can't even you can't help but criticize. And someone will say, "Oh, you're a woke liberal." No, I'm not. I'm just a guy who looks at the world and sees these guys are screwing up by their own metrics.
Right. And when the courts tell you you need to bring them back, you tell basically the courts to kick rocks. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
Well, the courts are Trump loses in court. He always loses in court. He's got the worst record in court. If he can't get out of it, if he can't delay, and as the government, you have less ability to do that. Courts are going to respond to habeas corpus, and they're going to shut you down if you try to get rid of it. And they're using a unanimous Supreme Court decision on the NRA case when the New York State Attorney General wanted to force insurance companies to stop underwriting gun manufacturers. The Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, said, no, you can't do that. You can't use your regulatory powers and the power of the state to clamp down on things things you don't like, things that don't have a public safety issue to them, just you disagree with, and or something to that effect. Unanimous, and it's been used. I think it was a conservative victory, but they're using it to knock down executive order after executive order as the system grinds through. And it goes back to we had a system where you had the idea of a veil of ignorance. You have rules where I don't know what side I'm going to be on. So we want the rules to be fair, whether I'm the plaintiff or the defendant. I want the rules to be fair because I'm this veil of ignorance. I don't know where I'm going to be in the future. And they forgot. A lot of people are forgetting about that. I'm sorry, County. He's like,
when Harold bobs his head, I think he's about to say something.
I'm
Sometimes he's
good.
nodding in agreement, and sometimes he's going to say something. So I haven't, out of all these years, I haven't figured out which head nod means what. So I'm kind of still working.
Don't blow a gasket. Just keep it moving.
No, well, Sunday I turned officially old. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Officially old.
What's officially old now?
I'm 47.
What?
I'm 47 now.
How the hell do you pick that? I'm figuring that it must be like you're turning 40. I know you're over 40.
Oh, 47. I'm 3 years. 3 years.
47? How do you come up with 47 as a number? Is it something to do with Trump? I mean,
Wait a minute.
I don't know. Now you'll be 47 and the number
Oh
just
dear God!
goes
You know
with.
my favorite part.
That's funny.
I don't want to
I
find it in
love
the video, but Trump just did an interview and he was talking about how he turned the
nothing.
water on because California was shipping all the water to the Pacific Ocean. And I'm like,
It does go there eventually.
yeah, no, that wasn't
You
it. Was
flush
he
the
said
toilet. You know.
how we stop the California wildfires because we're always having wildfires, but there's other forest places that don't have wildfires. And when we research it and we find out it's because they clean up, they sweep up the leaves, they get the grass up. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna clean up the forest, and then we won't have forest fires. I'm like, this guy's literally saying this as the president. And what I was told was Kamala can't form coherent sentences, and this guy is talking about taking a broom and sweeping up forests and that'll prevent the forest fires. Well, who's going to sweep up the forest? You're shipping everybody out of the country.
I
Our
shipped
forests are
400 brooms to DC. It's still 400 brooms to DC.
our forests are bigger than the ones in Europe. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yes.
Have you ever driven through California? I mean, my God.
When was the last time the National Guard was ordered to do things against citizens or residents of the United States? Has it been since the Civil Rights Movement? I can't think of anything else.
Well, there have been in LA in particular, a city that is prone
Well,
to erupting
I
now and then.
mean, I'm not talking about stopping, stopping riots and doing all of those
Right.
things.
Well, you can't. I don't know unless you want to go to like Kent State, and in the Vietnam era,
Yeah, that's what
with
I'm
those
saying.
protests.
Civil rights. You got Vietnam, and then we also have uh, during World War
Your
II.
situation on HBCU. What?
We know about the concentration camps during World War II with our Asian citizens. Japanese to be specific. But what were you saying, Harold?
There was an incident at an HBCU, but I can't remember which one.
Yeah, it's just the allowance of the amount of abuse of power. And you know what? I go back to this before we end. Every time something happens, I just keep remembering Obama about 2 months ago, just saying, "What if I had done any of this?"
Now, if you want me to get devil advocacy, if you wanted me to do it,
Specifically,
one
immigration
time, one time that
abusing power. Go ahead.
well, one time that you've had the federal government use troops to oppose a local thing would be desegregation.
Yeah.
And you've got to your problem is you've got. And so some people would say, well, what about that? We didn't want desegregation, and you sent 101st Airborne in to enforce the court order to desegregate. And
The court order.
right, but I'm just saying that if you're being honest, you're going to have to say, well, that was a major use of federal power, and
Well, I brought that up, Dave. That was the first thing I mentioned. I said since then.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything between then and there. That was the example I was using.
All right, then I missed that. So you were good to
I was
use it.
saying since the civil rights era, when was the last time the National Guard or the military was used in that capacity? So that's what I was saying.
Not. It hasn't been. You had. I grew up. I was in the New Jersey Army National Guard in college, and this would be 1984, 85. And in that unit, because people tend to stick around in these units for a while, there were people that remembered the Newark riots, and they talked about that. And there was a decided distaste. Like, no, we don't ever want to do that shit again. And so in the guard units, that was the from the summer of violence after the assassinations of everybody, but Martin Luther King in particular. And but that it was always this thing of like, yeah, we really don't want to even do that. I was in the New York Guard when they were, later, maybe a decade later in the early '90s, and I remember they were having something happened in New York City where they were having something where they had big security things, and they're like, and people were like, "Are they going to mobilize the Guard for this?" And I think the New York Guard had like 10, 12,000. We had half as many people in the New York Army National Guard as were in the NYPD, and so we kind of said, "Hey, these resources, they aren't that many, right? There aren't that many people, because these police departments are robust in and of themselves, and in ways they weren't back in the day." I don't know if that's any good for you, but
If I may, History.com says there were 7 times presidents have activated U.S. troops on American soil. 1, Civil War. 2, desegregation of southern schools. Dave mentioned that. 3, MLK's march from Selma to Montgomery. 4, the Detroit uprising in '67. I was only a year old, so I wouldn't have never remembered that one. The riots following the assassination of MLK. The Cuban refugee crisis of 1980. And the '92 LA riots.
Not since 1992. Well, there you go. You got a bit of history. Thank you guys for enjoying episode 11 of the Conversation with Harold and Dave. We have just ended on Dave going through his time in the Revolutionary War. And just to let ICE out there know that Harold Ford lives in Miami and he's 92% Mexican.
Come.